Retirement in America was sold like a timeshare. And just like a timeshare, most people who bought into it are now realizing they can't actually afford to use it. Here's the philosophical problem nobody wants to say out loud. We built an entire economic system around a promise that only worked if people died on schedule. And now they're not cooperating. I was talking to a guy named Frank at a coffee shop in Phoenix last month. 72 years old, worked at the same manufacturing plant for 43 years, retired in 2022 with what he thought was a decent nest egg. $210,000 saved up, Social Security kicking in. He told me he felt rich the day he retired. 6 months later, he was working at Home Depot 3 days a week because his property taxes went up, his insurance doubled, and his medication costs were eating him alive. Frank isn't an outlier. He's the median. See, here's what I'm going to walk you through today. I'm going to explain exactly how retirement became the most successful marketing campaign in American history, why that campaign is now failing for most of the people who bought into it, and why hundreds of thousands of boomers are making a choice that would have seemed insane 30 years ago, packing up and leaving the country entirely. Not for adventure, for survival. Think of retirement like this. Imagine you bought a car in 1975. The salesman promised you it would run beautifully for 10 years. No problem. You saved up, you made your payments, you did everything right. But now, instead of running for 10 years, you need that same car to run for 25 years. Same engine, same parts, except the gas is 3 times more expensive, the roads are worse, and the mechanic charges 4 times what he used to. That's retirement in America right now. The vehicle wasn't built for the journey people actually need to take. Here's the first thing you need to understand. Retirement as we know it, the whole image of golf carts and RVs and warm weather and freedom was literally invented by advertisers. I'm not being cynical. I mean literally invented. For most of human history, retirement meant you got old, you moved in with family, or you worked until you physically couldn't anymore. The idea that you'd have a decade of leisure at the end, healthy and financially secure, that wasn't some natural evolution. That was manufactured. Back in the 1960s, something unprecedented happened. For the first time in history, you had a large generation of people hitting their 60s with money in their pockets and bodies that still worked. Post-war boom, strong unions, pensions that actually meant something, Social Security expansion. Businesses looked at this and saw a market. They saw customers, and they did what businesses do. They sold them a dream. A developer in Arizona built the first real retirement community in 1960, called it Sun City, no kids allowed, shuffleboard courts everywhere. They marketed it as paradise earned. Not decline, but reward. And it worked. Travel companies started pushing cruises, insurance companies pushed financial products, John Deere started advertising lawn tractors as symbols of earned leisure. The entire image of retirement, the one burned into our collective brain, was a marketing creation. They were selling you your golden years like they'd sell you a vacation package. But here's where the model starts cracking. The math only worked if you died relatively quickly. In the 1970s, if you were a 65-year-old man, you could expect about 13 more years. 13 years in retirement after 40 years of work. That's a 4-to-1 ratio. Totally doable for most economic classes. Save a little, get your pension, Social Security fills the gap, you're good for a decade and change. Now, that same 65-year-old man, he's looking at 20 to 30 years, same 40 years of work, but instead of funding 13 years of retirement, he's trying to fund 25. The ratio flipped, and nobody adjusted the system to match. My neighbor, Carol, retired in 2023 at 66. She worked as a nurse for 41 years, saved diligently. She told me she'd done the math 100 times. She had $220,000 in her 401k, a paid-off house, and Social Security bringing in $1,900 a month. On paper, she thought she was fine. Then her property taxes went up $800 a year, her homeowner's insurance doubled because of climate risk recalculations, she needed a new roof, $14,000. One minor health scare, the out-of-pocket stuff Medicare didn't cover, another $6,000. Within 18 months of retiring, her cushion was gone. She went back to work part-time at a clinic. She told me, "I thought I did everything right. Turns out I just lived too long." That's the quiet part nobody says. The system was built for you to live from 65 to 78, not 65 to 92. Now here's where it gets really interesting. You'd think the solution would be simple: save more. But boomers were coming of age right as the entire retirement infrastructure was being gutted. Pensions disappeared, replaced with 401ks that put all the risk on the individual. Wages stagnated starting in the 1980s. Jobs became less stable. At the exact moment this generation needed to save 2 to 3 times more than their parents, the economy made it 2 to 3 times harder to do so. So you've got this impossible equation: longer retirements, higher costs, less support. And here's the kicker: the statistics everybody quotes are designed to make you think everything's fine. You've heard it. Boomers are the wealthiest generation in history, 83.3 trillion in total wealth, average net worth of $1.2 million. Sounds incredible. But averages are lies when you're dealing with extreme inequality. A small group of ultra-wealthy boomers push that average way up. The median boomer, the one right in the middle, has a net worth closer to $200,000. $200,000 sounds like a lot until you do the math. Spread over 30 years, that's $660 a month. Add in Social Security, median monthly income is about $2,600. Now try living on that. In 2022, the Bureau of Labor Statistics said the average retiree household spends about $55,000 a year. That's $4,583 a month. The median retiree income is $32,000 a year. You see the gap? $23,000 a year, every single year, for potentially 3 decades. According to the Social Security Administration, 63% of retirees rely on Social Security for at least half their income. 27% rely on it as their only income. Their entire income. Think about that. 1 in 4 retirees has literally nothing else coming in. And Social Security was never designed to be the whole thing. It was supposed to be a supplement to pensions and savings. Now it's the main event. So what do you do when the math doesn't work? You've got 2 options. First option, keep working. 1 in 5 people over 65 are currently employed. Back in 1986, it was 1 in 10. It's doubled. And I want to be clear. Some people work in retirement because they want to. They like the structure, the purpose, the social interaction. That's great. But most aren't working because they love it. They're working because the alternative is poverty. And here's the trap. If you're collecting Social Security before full retirement age, the government caps how much you can earn: $23,400 a year. So you can't get a full-time professional job. You're stuck with part-time work, often physical, retail, grocery stores, fast food, gig economy stuff. These jobs pay maybe $14, $15 an hour. You're still barely scraping by, and your body is 70 years old. Your knees hurt, your back hurts. Every shift is harder than the last. But there's no exit ramp. You just keep going because the bills don't stop. But now you might be thinking, what's the other option? Well, some people figured out a cheat code. You don't make more money. You make your money go further. How? You leave. Second option, retire abroad. Nearly 760,000 Americans now receive Social Security benefits while living overseas. 25 years ago, that number was around 400,000. It's almost doubled. And these aren't people chasing adventure. They're chasing math that actually works. Here's the thing. $32,000 a year, the median retirement income, barely keeps you afloat in America. But in Thailand, in Portugal, in Costa Rica, that same $32,000 goes 2, 3, sometimes 4 times as far. Let me give you the actual breakdown. Let's say you're living in Florida. You want a modest retirement community, mortgage or HOA fees, insurance, property taxes. You're looking at around $2,400 a month just for housing. Add utilities, groceries, transportation, healthcare. You're at $4,000 a month minimum, $48,000 a year. You're already underwater on median income. Now you move to Portugal. You rent a nice 2-bedroom flat in a good area, $830 a month. Groceries, maybe $250 instead of $500. You don't need a car. Public transit is cheap, maybe $50 a month. Eating out, coffee, daily life, everything costs half. Total monthly budget, around 2,500. You're living better and spending less. Thailand, even cheaper. A comfortable two-bedroom house, $170 a month. Groceries, maybe 150. Transportation, basically nothing. You can live well on 1,500 a month. Total, so you take your 32,000 annual income, and in the US, you're struggling. In Portugal, you're comfortable. In Thailand, you're thriving. The math is so obvious, it feels like a glitch in the system. Now, I know what you're thinking. If it's so great, why isn't everyone doing it? Because there's a second set of costs nobody talks about until you're already there. I spent over 2 years living in Ecuador with the Peace Corps. I wasn't retired, but I lived the expat life long enough to understand what it actually costs, not in dollars, in everything else. Here's a parable. Imagine you speak English your whole life. You're fluent. You understand every joke, every idiom, every cultural reference. Communication is effortless. Now imagine every single conversation you have for the rest of your life requires effort. You have to translate in your head. You miss jokes. You don't understand why people are laughing. You can't banter with the barista. You can't commiserate with strangers. Every interaction is work. That's the language barrier. And even if you learn the language, there's a deeper barrier. Culture isn't just words. It's shared context. In Ecuador, I spoke Spanish, but I never truly got the jokes. I never understood the political subtext. I was always slightly outside the circle. Then there's the constant confusion. In Ecuador, things would just happen. Roads would close because of protests. Power would go out for reasons no one explained. Government offices would shut down randomly. Every Ecuadorian knew why. I never did. No matter how long I lived there, I was always a step behind, always confused, always asking. After a while, being confused all the time is exhausting. Healthcare is another one. It's cheaper abroad, sure, but cheaper sometimes means worse. I got a cavity filled in Ecuador. A year later, the filling popped out. Turns out they didn't do it right. I had a friend who needed 2 teeth pulled when he got back to the States because of bad dental work. And this was at one of the best dentists in the country. The office looked modern, but the standards just weren't the same. And then there's the thing you can't escape. You're always the outsider. You look different. You sound different. People see you as temporary. They assume you have money. You get charged higher prices, taken advantage of. And no matter how long you stay, you're never really one of them. You're always the foreigner. I thought I'd live abroad forever. After 2 years, I was desperate to come home. Not because Ecuador was bad, because I missed effortless communication. I missed understanding what was happening. I missed feeling like an insider. A lot of retirees move abroad and realize the same thing. Yeah, the rent is cheaper, but you've traded money problems for isolation, confusion, and cultural exhaustion. For some people, it's worth it. For others, they end up more miserable than they were broke in America. So here's where we land. Retirement was sold as a product, a reward, 10 years of freedom after 40 years of work. But the product only worked under specific conditions, conditions that no longer exist. People live longer, costs are higher, the support systems are gone. And now, millions of people who bought into the promise are realizing the car they were sold can't make the trip. Some keep driving anyway, working into their 70s, their bodies breaking down. Others get out of the car entirely, move to a different country, trade financial survival for cultural isolation. Neither option is what was promised. So what do you actually do with this information? 3 things. 1. Stop blaming yourself. If you're struggling in retirement, it's not because you failed. It's because the system changed the rules after you already started playing. Pensions disappeared. Costs exploded. Lifespans extended. You didn't fail the plan. The plan failed you. 2. Reverse engineer your lifestyle to match your actual income, not your expected income. Most people retire with an image of what retirement should look like, then try to fund that image. It doesn't work. Start with the money you actually have, then build the lifestyle that fits. If that means downsizing, moving to a cheaper state, or yes, even moving abroad, fine. But make the choice based on reality, not the marketing brochure from 1975. 3. Understand that every option comes with trade-offs you won't see until you're living them. Working longer trades your body for money. Moving abroad trades money problems for cultural exhaustion. Downsizing trades space for savings. There's no perfect answer. There's just the trade-off you're willing to live with. The people retiring abroad aren't running toward paradise. They're running away from a system that promised them something it can't deliver. And honestly, I don't blame them.